Well, Rent is at the Palace Theater, and we're going to talk about the fabulous Palace Theater, one of my favorite places in all of New Hampshire, as Chris Lockwood, the Director of Marketing for the Palace Theater, joins me in studio on the program to talk not only about the Palace, but about theater as well. And first of all, Chris, welcome. It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Terrific show, Rent at the Palace Theater. I have heard nothing but rave reviews. I haven't seen the show in many years, but hopefully we'll get to see it. But the reviews have been unbelievable.
It's been stellar. I mean, if you know Rent, you know it's something completely different when it came out 20 years ago. It's more of a rock opera than a traditional musical. And the story and the content itself, it's a powerful story. It's a truly amazing piece of art. And I think that we do it really well. I know that we do it really well. And I know that by the reviews and the people who are coming back multiple times and the people who are saying, I saw it on Broadway, I saw it here, and I think that your cast is stronger.
Well, one of the things that you always have, no matter what show that you see at the Palace, is the quality of cast. And I know since Carl has been there, for the key roles, auditions are held. They come in from New York, or he goes out to New York to audition for the lead character roles. And I think it's important that people understand that. It's wonderful to have local talent as the supporting cast, but this is New York theater talent that appears in these shows at the Palace Theater.
Yeah, absolutely. There are some people who still think, oh, the Palace Theater, that's great community theater.
Right.
No, we're a professional theater. And just this week, for example, Carl just barely got back from New York casting for Spamalot that's coming up. Right. So there's, you would think, oh, they're just concentrating on Rent now. Like we put these shows up so quickly, he's got to go there in advance. And he had 300, A-list people come out to perform here. I think that we might be better known in New York City than we are in Manchester for the level of talent. People are so excited to come up here and be part of one of Carl's productions.
One of your jobs, obviously, Chris, is to market the theater and market the individual plays that are housed at the Palace Theater. And a show like Rent, obviously, is kind of different for you to market because it can attract a younger demographic. We all know that when you go to theater, particularly in New York, it's an older audience, it's an older demographic, and every so often you get a play like Rent, which can bring younger people. Talk about the success you've had in bringing in a younger crowd.
It's an exciting challenge to have, and we identified who is the target audience, who can we reach out to, and we partnered with Citizens Bank. And we were able to have 700 college students come and see the show for free, and which is tremendous because 97% of them had never been to the Palace Theater. So they show up and they see what we can do. And once you see a show at the Palace once, you're hooked. You're going to be coming back. It's a beautiful facility and the quality on stage is amazing. And then they go back and they tell their friends and they use social media. And it's just had this great effect of not using the traditional marketing of musicals out there, and we've noticed a couple of things. Social media is going crazy, which is great, but we have a brand new website, and we've always looked at, would we rather have people buy online or come and buy at our box office? And we've seen a huge spike in people buying online. And I think that speaks that, we are drawing younger generations, which is great for the overall well-being of the theater.
As a marketing guy, how important is it to take something like the social media and incorporate it into selling tickets to a theater production like a Rent or a Spamalot or the producers?
One of the unique things that Carl likes to do, he wants to show the entire process. He doesn't want you just to show up and say, oh, wow, look, everything was perfect. He wants to show 10 days before the show opened, this was a cast of strangers who came walking through the door. He wants to show them in rehearsal, struggling with the content of this show. And in the background, we were a mess for this one. We had some major renovations, a sprinkler system, a fly system, and the sets being built all at the same time, and you would think, oh my God, like this is never going to be ready in time, and it all comes together, and it's really nice to be able to show that through social media and share much more than just what you get to see on stage.
We're talking with Chris Lockwood, head of marketing at the Palace Theater here in New Hampshire, and I would like to say New Hampshire's professional theater, because that's what you see when you go to a professional theater production at the Palace. Another thing that's done so well at the Palace is the youth programs. And we talk a little bit about trying to get the audiences a little bit younger. And one of the ways that happens is by introducing live theater to younger people. And when I see, and I've had the opportunity many times to go over to the Palace, I would be having lunch with Peter Ramsey, and we would walk through the theater in the summer, and you would see just hundreds and hundreds of young kids being introduced to the theater experience as performers, as audiences, as playing a tree or a flower, whatever it is, to introduce them. And I just think it's so important to, at a young age, to try and introduce young people, and it's something the Palace does so well.
It's definitely, it's a strong part of our overall mission. And, when I first got the job at the Palace, I walked around and I took pictures of, where I worked and everything. And I came home that night, and my daughter, Callie, who's 4, had been to one of these productions. And she was like, oh my God, Daddy, you work with Rapunzel. That's where Rapunzel lives. And that's the experience that so many of the really little kids have, is they know the Palace because that's where the princesses live, and they see these great shows for, it's very affordable for them. But then we get into our Palace Youth Theater program, and it's truly amazing. I heard people talk about it. Oh, it's so good. The quality is so great, what Carl does with them. And then I finally saw it, and I was like, wow, it's really good. And I didn't really get it until we have a night called the Night of 1,000 Stars. It's the wrap-up of their season. And just to see the camaraderie and the family atmosphere that's there of all of these kids on stage, that this is their place. And as a parent, if you can find a place where your child is happy and safe, that's all you want out of this world. And we had our graduating seniors who are graduating from our teen company, who are serious. They're going to go on to college, and this is what they're going to pursue. And they read essays about what this program meant to them. And one of our seniors got up there and she said, I didn't fit in school. I was bullied. I was going to do something drastic. And then I found this, and it saved my life. And that was the aha moment of how important the younger generations and the atmosphere that we have at the Palace is to a lot of students.
I have spoken to so many young people over the years. Again, as a big theater buff, I've been around it in some capacity or other. And the one thing I've always gotten, particularly with younger people, many on the high school level, is the self-esteem portion that comes from being part of something like theater. And again, you see it in many of the high schools where you get the kid who doesn't have the self-esteem, doesn't have the self-confidence. Somebody convinces them to become part of the theater group or the production that a particular high school might be doing, and suddenly kids become a part of something. They find out that speaking, whether it's a speaking part or in the background, it's a whole world that opens up for them. And that's why I've been such an advocate for younger people to become involved in theater. And I just see what it does for some of these kids, and it's magnificent because it really opens up a whole new world to them.
It certainly does. And, growing up these days is
tough enough. It's tough.
It really is. And maybe you can't be the captain of the football team or whatever, but I think the Palace offers this safe environment of acceptance, and for everyone in the PYT program, I know the kids get it. And then talking with their parents, they're just so appreciative that we have a program like this available.
I want to get back to Rent for a second, because one of the things, again, in a previous job that I had at a different radio station, we would try and help promote some of the shows, and some of the performers would come in studio, some of the actors and actresses. And the one thing I always got from them was, once, many of them had never been to New Hampshire, didn't know anything about the Palace or Manchester, and they all would eventually say the same thing. Wow, this place is magnificent. The crowds are great. They appreciate the performers. And it's always invariably such a good experience that they find themselves auditioning for other shows. And many of them come back in different shows because they like the whole Palace Theater experience from a performer's point of view. And that's really saying something about the whole Palace Theater family.
It certainly is. The Palace Theater family, if you looked at us as an organizational chart and who does what at what times, you would say there's no way that works. But we make it happen, from our creative and technical team, our development, membership, our box office, our grant writers. And I think it's a testament to how much people care and the difference that it can make, and how it just comes across in how we look at all the details as to how we treat our actors and our casts. And they are so appreciative that they want to come back. Yeah. And I think that comes across from what they get from the audiences too. Manchester, I think, has a pretty knowledgeable audience about what's good, and we're close enough where they can go to New York or to Boston and they can compare. So they, we're not going to pull anything past them. Yeah. It's not going to slide if we don't have the quality there. So I think it's a good time to be at the Palace. We're coming up on our centennial, and I think this season is just going to be absolutely wonderful.
Before we take a break, you had mentioned about the Palace Youth Group, and it's interesting because there are many who have gone through that program who have gone on to Broadway and have gone on to perform in many other places. I know Kaylee Cronin, who was certainly a veteran of the Palace youth programs and the Palace Theater, was just recently touring. I'm not sure if she still is, but was touring with Jersey Boys. Mm-hmm. And you just hear those stories. I know when I go to the theater, which we try to do a lot, and I love reading the playbills and reading the backgrounds of the performers, and many times I have seen somebody either giving a shout out to the Palace Theater or have mentioned that that's where they started their theatrical careers, were at the Palace Theater. So it has done a lot for a lot of young people, and has launched a number of careers. It
certainly has. And I see us exactly the same as the Monarchs or the Fisher Cats. We are a feeder system for Broadway, and then we get people coming from Broadway coming back to us as well.
We're joined by Chris Lockwood of the Palace Theater. We're talking about Rent, which is ongoing now until Saturday, October the 5th. So you still have time. Tickets are available. They're reasonably priced. You can get them at the box office, or more importantly, check out the new Palace Theater website at palacetheater.org and get your tickets because the show is phenomenal and has gotten rave reviews. We'll talk about some of the other upcoming shows this season at the Palace Theater. It's 4:38 in the afternoon on Kale and Company on The Pulse. We'll be right back. 4:42 on a Tuesday afternoon on The Pulse. Charlie Sherman in for Ken Kale. Kenny back tomorrow from his week-long sojourn out west. I'm sure he'll have lots of stories to talk about. We're joined right now by Chris Lockwood of the Palace Theater in Manchester, and right now ongoing is the professional production of Rent, which is at the Palace right through October the 5th. So you have this weekend, the weekend of the 26th, the weekend of October 3rd, and then that's it for you. So you need to get your tickets and get them soon. If you have talked to anybody who has seen Rent at the Palace Theater, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It is the reviews have been just amazing, and you can get your tickets online at palacetheater.org, or if you'd like to stop by the Palace Theater box office. They're always very friendly and happy to help you out, and the tickets are reasonably priced. So get your tickets, because this show has really been a very hot ticket and a terrific, terrific show. So, matter of fact, we're going to give away a couple of pair of tickets to see Rent at the Palace Theater. So if you are the third and fifth callers, how's that, J-Dog? I'll keep you on your toes there. Third and fifth callers at 866-823-1077, and you would like to see Rent at the Palace Theater, give us a call right now. Caller 3 and caller 5, 866-823-1077 to see Rent. Chris, you mentioned that Carl is casting Spamalot, another great Broadway musical, Tony Award winner, which is coming next to the Palace Theater. Talk a little bit about that, and it is a amazingly funny musical. If you like the Monty Python humor, you will love Rent. I've seen it on Broadway. It is just an amazingly funny show. And is this again another show that will attract all ages? Certainly the Monty Python humor skews a little bit younger than something like Cabaret.
Right. I don't know if Peter was just like concerned about my abilities. He tossed me a couple of slow pitches here to hit out of the park right off the bat. And believe me, I'll keep taking them all day. But yeah, with Rent and Spamalot, the ticket sales have been phenomenal. And, traditionally we go with a much smaller show to start off because we take the summers off to do our children's theater. And usually the first show is kind of the reminder, hey, it's time to get back and check out what's going on at the Palace again. And one of the difficult things for us is because we put the shows up so quick, we literally have no marketing pieces until about 10 days before the show opens, other than the name. Mm-hmm. So the name is always very important, and Spamalot is great. You know that it's going to be funny, it's going to be entertaining. It's one of Carl's shows, so the choreography is going to be absolutely amazing. And yeah, he just got back from New York. He has his kind of war room where he has all of these headshots, and you just see him moving around and seeing how he's going to fit together his cast and the ensemble. And I saw it before I left, and there's still a few faces that need to go up there, but we're getting pretty close to having a cast, and that's always exciting.
And Spamalot opens on November the 1st at the Palace Theater, and tickets are on sale again through the website or at the Palace Theater, and it is a incredibly funny and entertaining Broadway musical that you will see right here in Manchester, and it is a terrific play. So it's a great lineup of shows. One of my all-time favorites is also on this year's schedule, and that is the producers, Mel Brooks, the producers, Max Bialystock, and all the gang, and was performed just a few years ago at the Palace Theater. A great production. I saw it there. I've seen it at least 5 times, and if I was younger and could memorize lines, my dream role would be to play Max Bialystock and the producers. Unfortunately, I'm old, fat, and can't remember stuff, so those days are gone behind me, but I still love watching people perform that role. I actually saw Tony Danza. Talk about miscasting. Tony Danza was in Vegas, at Paris, Las Vegas, playing Max Bialystock, and it was kind of interesting because when you picture that role, you picture somebody who's a little heavier set. Again, it's Nathan Lane's role. He created it.
Yeah.
But I've seen others perform it. I've seen it down at the North Shore Music Theater. I saw it, again with Tony Danza. I saw it at the Palace last time. It was at the Palace, and it was different seeing Tony Danza in that role. But it's such a great role for somebody to play. And I know last time it was the Palace. It was playing a sellout crowds almost every night. And I'm sure it'll be no different this time around. But that's on the schedule as well. So you've really got a great lineup of shows this year.
We do. The lineup has lots of big ones in it. The producers, a chorus line. We've got our traditional. We do the Nutcracker and Christmas Carol. And Carl tries to tweak those each year to give you a little something different. And then one of the gems that we have is Carl has the ability to do his own original productions. and we're bringing one back from last year, Divas Through the Decades, it was the first show that I saw there as the director of marketing. And I've seen a lot of shows at different venues. And I went up to him and I said, of everything that I've been to, this is the most entertained I've been. Just paying homage, going all the way back to Etta James and all this amazing music, all the way up through Beyonce, and weaving that into this journey. What he's able to do, not to mention the singing and the dancing, is just phenomenal. And so that's coming back. And then we have his new creative. It's My Mixtape, The Sounds of the 80s, which when we were coming up, when he was developing his idea for it, we were kicking around what that used to mean, making a mixtape. And, it's gone. It doesn't exist anymore.
Right. Tape? What's tape? What's a cassette?
What's a cassette? And instantly we all started talking about, oh yeah, you would listen to the radio and hope that the jock didn't talk over too much of it, and intros, put your love songs on and give it to that special girl. I was thinking of you, and that was a lot of people have that memory, and I think he's going to run with it. It's going to be a fantastic show. And
you mentioned the Chorus Line, which is one of the greatest shows ever on Broadway, and it's been at the Palace before, but again, it's a show that sells out, and I think everybody knows some of the music from A Chorus Line. It's a relatively simple story that is just told for anybody who's ever auditioned for anything in their lives. You can certainly relate to A Chorus Line. One Singular Sensation. Everybody knows that song. And that's coming in April 25th to May the 17th. So it really is a lot of familiar shows, and then some shows that will be familiar once you go to them and hear some of the music, whether it's the Divas or Mixtape. There will be songs that people will recognize as well. So it's a lot of great familiarity in all of these shows for people who attend them. And then, of course, the Christmas Carol, which has become quite a tradition. I've actually had walk-ons back in my Channel 9 days. I was invited to have a walk-on in one year in A Christmas Carol, and then also in the Nutcracker. I've had a walk-by. I actually have a poster somewhere. And watch for WMUR's Charlie Sherman in the background.
Well, great. I think we should bring that back.
I don't know that I can handle
it. Do a cameo.
You want to have people come, not stay away. All right, we have two more pair of tickets we're going to give away before we go off the air here. And again, we'll take, this time, callers 2 and 4 at 866-823-1077 if you'd like to see the Tony-winning musical Rent at the Palace Theater. We'll take callers 2 and 4 at 866-823-1077, 866-823-1077 for a pair of tickets to see the award-winning production of Rent at the Palace Theater. It's only there through October 5th, so get your tickets online at palacetheater.org or at the Palace Theater box office. Chris, before we wrap up, there are other shows also at the Palace Theater, and you've got a couple of good ones coming. Richard Marx and Firefall, names that people remember and who certainly have some songs that people will recognize.
Yeah, and we have this wonderful new website, so please go and check us out, palacetheater.org. And if you're not familiar with Firefall, we've put clips of the music. I guarantee you know every single song. Charlie, I just played you the commercial.
Chris just played me a couple of the songs on the commercial, and there were songs that I certainly know and have listened to hundreds of times. I never knew that the band that performed them were Firefall.
Yeah, so,
I'm ashamed of myself, being a former DJ.
But I think that's just one of the mystiques about them is they have all of these hits that you'd be like, oh, I know that. Oh, I know that. I love that. And so please check them out. It's a wonderful compliment to all the theater that we do. And we've said a couple of times the prices are reasonable. What do you spend when you go to Broadway?
Oh, my word, $100 a ticket anyway.
Yeah, at least, and it goes up from there. Our tickets, you can get great seats for $39. The Palace is a very intimate venue. There's
not a bad
seats.
seat. There's not a bad seat in the house.
No, so please come and check us out.
All right, and again, check out the website, palacetheater.org. Rent playing until October the 5th at the Palace, and then beginning on November 1st, Monty Python's Spamalot. You will, believe me, you will rave about these shows if you support them, and support live musical theater as well. It's so great, and if you have kids, bring them. You will not regret it, introducing them to live theater, and you can do it right here in New Hampshire. Chris Lockwood of the Palace Theater. Chris, thanks so much. Pleasure talking theater with you.